Greetings. Greetings. Hello, everyone. Greetings and welcome to Conversations with Tony Mobley. On Conversations with Tony Mobley today, I have Mr. John Drinkwater, a Zoom developer, a graphics facilitator, and a Zoom trainer. This is episode 27 of 2025, Conversations with Tony Mobley. We are powered by Mimo Live. I want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley. You can watch our conversation on conversationwithtonymobley.com. We have an interactive chat called Mukana. It's courtesy of Alex Lindsay, where you can ask your questions. Those questions can be voted up and down. We also encourage you, if you do not want to use Mukana, that you can ask your questions in the YouTube chat. And we are going to get started today. Hello again and welcome, Mr. John Drinkwater. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. And honored I am to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Our very first question is, I just want to make sure that I am asking you the very first question, and it is, who is John Drinkwater?
Oh, I don't know. Depends where I am. Depends what I'm doing. John Drinkwater is a pianist when he's bored. John Drinkwater is a programmer when he wants a challenge. John Drinkwater flies flight simulators because it's cheaper than going in a normal airplane. And if you don't like the venue, you just stop the software, which is quite neat. And John Drinkwater is also known as Lord Zoom, thanks to Toastmasters International. Praise be to the organization.
Fantastic. And the next question is, how did you get the nickname Lord Zoom?
I stole it. When the terrible COVID hit, I was a member of Toastmasters International, the speaking organization, and I was already known within 18 months of being a member as one of those techie guys that could solve things like why didn't the website work and things like that. So when COVID hit and we suddenly found that we couldn't meet face-to-face anymore, 350,000 people around the world were very disappointed and we needed a solution. Fortunately, a couple of clubs had used this product called Zoom. Has anyone heard of Zoom? Well, of course, at that point, nobody had really heard of Zoom, but they were soon to. And it was my first major job to get websites looking right in Toastmasters. And that adds nothing into my second job, which was to work out how to turn Zoom into an online experience for public speaking when we're used to all meeting in a church hall or a committee room or whatever to learn public speaking skills, because we didn't want to stop 350,000 people around the world from meeting. We needed a way of doing it online.
It is a global organization, and how long had you been involved with Toastmasters?
Round about 18 months. So it was quite new, but because of the technical things I'd done, I was probably better known than most Toastmasters at that time. And I did quite a good job getting people online. And then I even had the opportunity, and for me, it was amazing because I was actually asked to be one of 6 people that joined Toastmasters International in a global webinar to help and encourage Toastmasters around the world to take on this challenge of using Zoom. And I thought that was the best thing that could ever happen to me. And then I got a phone call from a friend of mine. And she said, John, I've got a small problem. We have £20,000, say $25,000, tied up in payments to a hotel, which we can no longer use. But we've still got to run our end of year district conference, which includes 4 speaking competitions, one of which will be the stepping stone for the speaker, the Toastmaster of the world for that year. And the problem is, what do we do? And that was the third thing that was dropped on my lap that year.
Wow.
Between you and me, I didn't have a clue what to do for about a week. Which was worrying because I only had 6 weeks from when I was told till the first week in May when this 3-day event was going to run.
Okay.
And so I looked at what Zoom could do, and let's be honest, that far back, you could do Zoom meetings. That was it. There was none of these other tools we have now. No webinars, no events, no Mimo Live. I used a product called vMix, but there was no Zoom support for vMix. In fact, the week before the event, I was going to use Wirecast, and then 2 days before, I changed horses, and switched to using vMix. But I had one of those ATEM, one of the very first ATEM video switchers. And what I did in a non-technical way was I got a lot of computers. So I put the audience in the computer in front of me, and I set up 2 computers, one each side of me. And then I would get my assistant Zoom masters to start up a Zoom meeting for what we needed, which may be a competition, it may be a speaker, but they would set up a Zoom meeting for that particular activity. And then using my video switcher, I would connect to that computer and I would feed it in to the audience who are on the computer in front of me. And I turned the whole event into a TV show, because while that was running, I would then connect with the computer on this side to the next thing that's going to happen. And then at the appointed time, I would turn off this side and reconnect this side, and we would carry on. And we ran that, and that was our system. And of course, it was during COVID, so no one else could be in the room. So I was in a small box room with these 4 computers, because I had the one in front of me, I had one over here, one over there, and then I had a very famous iPad, which I've still got with me now. It's very out of date now, but this iPad was a audience member. So this was logged into the audience. So I could always see what the audience could give me, what we're getting by keeping an eye on this. Obviously, there was a bit of a delay because it's wireless and whatever, but I could see what was happening in the audience, from the audience point of view. And I haven't forgotten the question. We started Friday night. By about Saturday afternoon, I started to notice these comments about this guy called Lord Zoom. And it probably took me an hour to an hour and a half to realize they were talking about me. But they were just making comments. Oh, look, Lord Zoom has done whatever. And I was thinking, gosh, this Lord Zoom guy sounds really clever. And then I realized that the things they were talking about were the things that I was doing. And that's how I became Lord Zoom. Or at least that's how I pinched the name, and I've kept it ever since. And as long as I tell you, I'm not an employee, I'm not a sponsor, I'm not sponsored by, I'm not paid for by Zoom, I'm independent, I'm allowed to keep it.
All right. Well, congratulations, Lord Zoom. We have a question from Clarlock Lopez Waterman from Brevard, North Carolina. What is your favorite vision switcher?
has to be the A10 range, Blackmagic. I'm sorry to all those other people that have come along. I like the Blackmagic range because it is a range. I'm not going to knock the other products. There's some really good innovative products around there now that will copy and in some ways can be better or cheaper than the Blackmagic range. But the reason I stick to that range is because it is a range. If you have a dedicated use and a dedicated thing like the Tony Mobley Show, you can buy equipment that's suitable for that. I don't have that comfort. I do events from a few people to a few hundred to a few thousand. I do face-to-face events. I do hybrid events. I try not to do many events myself for other people anymore. I try to teach them, but I do have a wide range of events that I support and show people. And therefore, it's more convenient for me to use a video switcher, of which there are a range of products that I can either use or recommend, rather than having to swap from one manufacturer to another, depending on what size the world is.
I'm currently using an ATEM Mini Pro, and very happy with it. I got it in the very early days of COVID, and it's still very useful, even though Conversation with Tony Mobley is powered by Mimo Live. We we utilize the switcher as well. Um, so you are a Zoom developer. What does that mean?
Okay. I'm also a Zoom community champion, and that's where my close Zoom relationship probably started. So if I may, I'll explain that first. As a Zoom community champion, there is a Zoom community forum where if you are not a corporate user with a big account and direct support from Zoom, you will go into the community. And I believe Zoom is about 60-40 in its use. About 40% of its customers are corporates and 60% are smaller account holders. So if you have a problem, you go to the community forum, and I am one of the people that may answer your question for you. I was then asked if I would be interested in being a Zoom developer MVP, of which I believe at the moment there's only 7 of us.
You have to talk about what an MVP is.
Most valuable person. So it's just
Okay.
just an MVP. And we are not employees of Zoom. We are external people who have development experience, have products, or are designing products in Zoom. And we support the developers forum, and we are accompanied by quite a few developers who work for Zoom. And obviously, it's a completely different type of environment programming for Zoom than it is to be a community champion in the normal users of Zoom. But for me, my added value, if you want, my special skill, is the fact that I use Zoom as a user on a regular basis, doing all these events, doing all these fantastic things, which gives me a different perspective when I then look for developing some software. And in fact, that's why the first app that I released was actually to solve a problem of Zooms, because people kept using the hand raised app, or the hand raised button, to cause problems in meetings. So if you've got an open meeting, whatever the name, anonymous, or church meetings, all those sort of meetings where you have an open house policy, if somebody starts raising or lowering their hand, they bounce up and down in the list of users. And it's the latest way to disrupt Zoom meetings. And knowing what I know about the tools that you can use to raise hands, including the latest Elgato plugin now, which allows me to raise my hand by just pressing a button on a Elgato Stream Deck, I knew there were programming links to that operation. And so I did some research and I created an app which will count how many times you raise and lower your hand. And if you hit the threshold, You can either be sent to the waiting room or you can be kicked from the meeting.
Very cool. Yeah, that's exciting. We have another question from Clylock Lopez Waterman. What apps have you developed?
Well, I have that one. And I have, as I said, I have between 3 and 5 different apps that I'm creating at the moment. And I'm using them for my own closed groups, but I will eventually put them on the marketplace. I have a problem with the marketplace, which is very simple. Today, if I want to bill you for using my app, I have to build a billing platform. And I can do that. But if I was an American company, I can actually get Zoom to bill you on my behalf. At the moment, that's not available outside the US.
Oh,
Because
wow.
obviously there's lots of legal and tax and whatever obstacles that make it more complicated for Stripe, who are the, I don't think there's any secret, because you would find out when you get a bill. There's no secret that Stripe is one of the partners in the background. So Stripe have set it up for US use, but because of the international rules, they need to do a bit more work before they can release it to be used worldwide. So rather than me creating an app and releasing it now and then having to create my own, put my own billing platform, I would rather wait a couple of months and then put it through Zoom's billing platform. But if they
Okay.
don't do it in time, then I will do it through my own billing platform. But developing is an interesting world because, should I tell you this? No, of course I should tell you this. If you want to be a Zoom developer and
Mm-hmm.
you only want to develop for your own account, you can.
Oh,
And
wow.
you can do almost anything you like because it's your account. If you break it, okay, you break it, but it's your account. And then there's a very big step up. If you want to then create that app and then make it use for other people, obviously then Zoom needs to make sure you are a secure app. You're not trying to do things you shouldn't do. And there's a whole load of hoops you have to jump through. It's a very big jump from doing your own app just for your own use or within your own organization. And a lot of corporates have little apps that they run to work Zoom with whatever else software they have. But if you want to have an app in the marketplace, there are much higher levels of security and confidentiality and all issues that it would take a whole Tony Mobley show to go through that you would need to jump through. And it's actually getting harder because the more features that Zoom make available to developers, the more they need to make sure that those things are secure. Because if you give me access to your account details, that means my app can read all your account details. And you've got to make sure that the people that do that are going to do it in a friendly and correct way. But it's very exciting.
Very, yes, very cool. Um, I want to ask you about when you look at the Zoom App Store, is there anything that jumps out at you in terms of apps you think that people should be checking out?
It's interesting looking at the App Store and comparing that with the conversations I have with developers on the forum and when I get to meet them because we have meetups. It's the one time I really would like to be an employee at Zoom because unlike the other engineers that I work with, I have no idea how many units of the different apps are being sold. And I have no idea what proportion of apps running are running for corporates or for their own use type uses compared to what's on the App Store that are being used by others. I have some pretty devious ways of finding out things and getting inklings of what's going on without people telling me because I haven't got an NDA with Zoom. I haven't got an NDA where I'm being told secrets. I'm only, and I like that because I then keep my independence. But I think this year Zoom is talking about AI. I think they're missing a trick, because I think the biggest boom for Zoom is apps. And I probably think that it's not really going to take off this year, and maybe it will take off next year. Because it's mind-boggling what you can do with apps. There are lots of people at the moment, developers, who are taking the content of meetings like this, and they're taking the recordings and they're putting them through AI and all these wonderful processes and libraries and things. And they're taking the data from these conversations and putting them back into the CRMs. I think that's one of the big areas which can get very interesting. And the other area, which I don't want to be horrible, because there's some really good apps, and SPX is a good example of apps, but that is a so underused part of Zoom. And it's so easy to do that there could be, actually there will be if I have my way, there could be an enormous explosion of apps around adding graphics to the screen in Zoom. Not in Mimo Live, in Zoom. But Mimo Live is the other half of the same story, because the other thing you can do with Zoom is, instead of adding stuff into Zoom, you take a product like Mimo Live and you add Zoom into that product. And then you can create anything you like that has video conferencing and put Zoom into the back of it. So you don't have to do all the back end stuff. You don't have to create all the servers. You just build your app. It could be a dating app, could be a jobs app, could be a church app. You could do a special version of Zoom for churches. Take away all the buttons they don't need, add some buttons they do. I think that's where the biggest explosion could be.
Wow, that's fantastic, and you've given me some ideas. We have a question from Lou Perez, who is coming in from Arizona, and he says, "You're writing a letter to Santa on a postcard and can only have room to ask for one thing this year. What would be the one Zoom thing that you would like Santa to give you?"
Toastmasters are very good at asking impromptu questions, although I have to complain that Tony changed the context of that question halfway through, because I had a wonderful answer until he said Zoom. What I would really like is something that I would never actually buy. So if Santa's going to give me something, I would like a nice big conferencey type screen with cameras and all the gubbins that you have in conference rooms. Because there's no way I'm ever going to justify having one of those in my office when nobody comes to see me. But I'd love one of those.
Interesting. Okay. Um, Clyde Lopez, excuse me. Clyde Lopez Waterman is back again. He says, "What is your thoughts, likes, and dislikes about developing code with the help of AI?"
I have made myself famous on the developers forum. I've actually written, I don't know, he's seen this, maybe he spotted me. I've written a post on the Zoom developers forum telling them not to use AI to write code for Zoom. And the simple reason I've told them to do that is because AI can't write code for Zoom, because it always gets it wrong or leaves out some of the authentication, and then the code doesn't work. And then you get people coming to the forums crying because they've downloaded the code, they put it through AI, and nothing happens. So you can't use AI to write code.
Is the issue that AI is not sophisticated enough yet to do the code for Zoom, or is it a prompting error with those who are trying to use it?
AI is not sophisticated enough. There is too much. Zoom has changed so much in the last 5 years that if anybody Googled how to write code for Zoom, they're going to pick up so much information on the internet that's wrong or out of date that a human couldn't Google the internet to find out how to write code for Zoom unless they just went to the Zoom forum and only used the examples talked about in the Zoom forum. So AI doesn't stand a chance because it's going to go for the whole internet and it doesn't have the intelligence to tell what's right and what is wrong. And that's the difference between humans and AI. And it's going to be an issue for a long time yet.
So the question becomes, those who take what you just said, they need to reach out to the forums. And if that is the case, how do they do that? How do they connect with the Zoom forums?
You can use AI to help you develop a product once you have something working. But you need to get something working before you let AI break it for you. There are examples, there are code examples written by the Zoom guys that are there that work that you can use as a starting point. Some of them are out of date because they are 2-3 years old. And as we know, software is always updating, monthly. So they may build you some code that doesn't work properly because it wants some new libraries, some new versions of the bits that it's used. But you will get the process. There's an authentication process you have to go through for Zoom apps to authenticate them with the marketplace, to authenticate them with the user. So, you can't just do an API call and get a list of somebody's meetings. You've got to go through an authentication process. And AI just doesn't understand that, can't deduce it from the examples, or doesn't deduce it from the examples. You need to do that yourself. But once you've got an app running, I use AI to add little things and to speed up my experience after that. I have an app that I've not released. I don't mind anyone else copying it. I've got an app that works around breakout rooms. Breakout rooms on Zoom are fantastic. But if you have a business group or a networking group and you have a breakout room session where you want to shuffle everybody together, you either do it by hand or you get Zoom to just shuffle everybody around randomly. Now, we all know that when you do breakout rooms for training, for networking, quite often you want people in charge in each breakout room. You want your administrators, whoever they are, in each breakout room. And if you're going to do networking, you want to meet different people every time you go into a breakout room. You don't want to bump into the same people again. You just want to keep meeting new people. There you are. I've just given you 5 or 6 different thoughts, I expect. If you're thinking of an app, 5 or 6 different thoughts of what you could do. I used AI. I went to AI and said, this is how I get my breakout rooms. This is my list of people. Give me a good algorithm that will allow me to sort them into groups so that they all get to meet each other, or they don't meet the same person, so they meet each other until they run out of options. 6 people in a group of 6 will need 6 meetings before they get to meet everybody. And the AI gave me an algorithm, and I just put that into the rest of the code, which had got the list of the people, and then it sorted them into a group, and then I sent them into the breakout rooms. So I've got an app that allows me to repeatedly put people into breakout rooms, and they don't meet the people they met in the last breakout room. They meet a new set of people, and they iterate until they run out of people to meet. And I'm sure if you think about it, there's lots of different other places where you would like to set rules for breakout rooms. So what do we do? Well, I put my Zoom developers hat on and I say, we're not going to wait for engineering to come up with this because we've got the options in the developers kit. Why don't we just write the rules into a bit of code and put it out as an app? And guys, you've got 60 to 90 days to beat me to the marketplace. But I'm sure whatever you come up with, I'll come up with something different.
60 to 90 days to beat you to the market. Uh, and I just want to be clear. So you're saying that it is beneficial, you think, for people to use their own coding system in order to create an app, and then once they've created the foundation, then to utilize AI. Is that correct, or am I missing something?
No, I think that's correct. You start your app, you build your basic app using the proper examples, the latest examples from Zoom. Once you get the basic authorization system working, I mean, I can tell you how it works in about 30 seconds. You have a code for your app. You have to then send that code to the Zoom marketplace. The Zoom marketplace then allows you to run that particular app, even if it's your own, on the machine, the user login that you've had the conversation with. So that app is now live on your user account. When you have that conversation, you get 2 tokens. You get 1 token, which is your secret code. And every time you want to ask Zoom to do something for you, you have to send that secret code. But that secret code expires after an hour. So the second code you have is your refresh code. So after you've used that code, it expires after an hour. You then use the refresh code to get a new primary code out of Zoom, and you can carry on having a conversation with Zoom, getting commands. And that's how the security works in Zoom. So everybody in every app has a different set of security codes, and that protects people from copying and using each other's codes and all that sort of stuff. And that's how it works. But AI does not, when it sees examples, AI does not understand that process. And the process has changed. So again, if it looks at old versions of code, it wouldn't know that. So you have to set that process up yourself. Once you've got that process working yourself, it's then a question of, well, what am I going to do? What commands are available in Zoom, and how can I use them?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for making that clear. We have a question from Laura Thompson, and the question is: the breakout room code sounds amazing. It solves the problem education has been asking to be solved since 2020. So this is not a question but a comment. So Laura Thompson, who is actually on the Conversation with Tony Mobley team, wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Laura. This is why I have this, this to and fro conversation with myself. I could never work and do all the code for all the different versions of how anyone would want to use a breakout room. If I tell you that the developer's kit allows you to get a list of the people in the room, and then you can organize them electronically with a piece of code to go into the breakout rooms, and you can bring them back from the breakout rooms, and all those functions are available, I am sure we could find 100 developers who could write different versions of that to suit all the different needs of all different people. And we still probably would find people that would say, but I've got another use case, and we would do it again. So this is why I don't think it's worth me keeping secret how it works. It's probably better for the whole community to share how that works and get everybody to move to another level.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, for that. And Laura, thank you so much for your comment. What do you want to share? Do you want to share anything about the Zoom Test Kitchen?
If you'd like me to give you a free ad for the Zoom Test Kitchen, yeah, why not?
Sure.
Zoom Test Kitchen is where a bunch of bored people who've got nothing better to do on a Friday talk about Zoom. That's what the Zoom Test Kitchen is. That's the good news is it's good fun.
And we try to break things too. We try to break things and figure.
There's no love lost with Zoom at the Zoom Test Kitchen. Yeah, yeah. If stuff doesn't work, then people say it doesn't work. What's interesting about the Zoom Test Kitchen is the diversity of the people and the uses that they use Zoom for is quite frightening, really. And that, I think, makes the Zoom Test Kitchen work. But it's not for everybody. I do warn you, it is very geeky. If you want to run events, or if you've got a really obtuse question about Zoom, drop in and see. If you want to find out why the latest feature in Zoom doesn't work properly, we've probably tried to break it the week before as well. Come and see. Those are the
Absolutely.
reasons why I would be involved in the Zoom Test Kitchen. I have my own YouTube channel, which I keep being told not to do and then to do and not to do. Well, I'm doing it now. So I have my own YouTube channel. I did a lot of YouTube videos when Toastmasters first had to use Zoom, and because we were, yeah, that's where we had to
Well,
go.
John, I need you to share your YouTube channel. What is it?
A boom with Lord Zoom. And if you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's John Drinkwater, Lord Zoom.
And
So you see, and yes, I do own, before you ask, I do own the domain name lordzoom.com. I'm very careful what I put on it, but I do own the domain lordzoom.com.
Okay. All right.
But yes,
Thank you.
I find that now we're all back and we're all back to normal, COVID's over and all that sort of thing. I found that a lot of the content creators who were helping everybody use Zoom have all gone back to their day jobs. And the amount of information about Zoom has pretty much died off. So now I've got the Zoom community sort of process working in my head. I now want to move out to the next level and start creating more YouTube videos about Zoom so that people can Google, if people still Google, the questions. And if they don't Google, it doesn't matter, because if we put the answers on the internet, then all the AI bots are going to go and read it as well, aren't they? So they'll learn and they'll come up with the right answers as well. So I think it's a win-win. I'm very much
John, if
about
people,
feeding AI nowadays, feeding AI with good quality content so it can come up with better answers to stuff and not make up things like it does often. Does that make
John, if
sense?
people, that makes sense. If people want to hire you for work, how would they best contact you?
Well, if you want to hire me to do an event for you, I'm afraid those days are over. If you want to hire me to help you organize your event and then you run it yourself, yeah, you can contact me. LinkedIn's probably the easiest way to do it. That's the most open platform, isn't it? So it's, if you look for John Drinkwater Lord Zoom, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And if you want to know what's going on, LinkedIn is going to be my primary social media platform. So I post things I'm up to there. I have 3 different accounts in Zoom. I have a demo account, I have a corporate account, and I have a business account. And I run events on all 3. And Zoom say you can have 1 million people in a meeting. I want to make that happen. I want to have a meeting with 1 million people, or a webinar with 1 million people in that. That would be my ultimate goal of Zoom. Just because I want to
What,
see if it works.
what's your largest at this point group of people?
Most of my events are usually, annoyingly, between about 120 and 150. I say annoyingly because, as you all know, the main license finishes at 100. But I do have business licenses, and business licenses, you can run groups of 300, so that gets around that. When we did the events for Toastmasters, we had around the 1,000 mark.
Wow.
So we've done bigger, and it is a, I don't know how to really explain this to you. I think you just have to think about it. There's a big jump from a dozen to 100, and there's an even bigger jump between going from 100 people to 1,000 people. and you have to use different processes, and you have to use different systems, and you have to be more automated and controlled. Otherwise, you can get inundated very quickly. If things go wrong and you've got 12 people in a room, 12, 15 people and having a meeting, it's not hard to fix. If you've got 100, it becomes a bit of a panic. But if you get it wrong and 1,000 people are going to turn up, well, that's
Wow.
just, yeah, wow. That's just, oh my God, what do we do now? Pray very quickly to the Zoom gods and hope it gets fixed. So it's an order of magnitude. Now to go into the thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions, that's an even more challenging concept. But I'd love to have it as a problem.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. So the next question is, what is next for Mr. John Drinkwater? What's next for you?
I think we've almost touched on quite a bit of it already. I really started being a developer in earnest just before Christmas. And then I did about a month's worth of work, and then I more or less dropped it till about March. I feel that I'm now a proper developer. I've got an app on the App Store. So I'm a proper developer. It's like having a book in a bookstore, isn't it? I think I've got to that point now where I understand the programming side of it. I understand the real world side of it. And it's now a question of designing the apps in a way that make use. So I think the next 6 months is going to be developing apps, encouraging other people to develop apps, because I can't do it on my own. And I think the bigger the community of developers, the more amazing things we're going to get. And the other side of it is the education side. So I've been trying to work out the way to run meetings, webinars, etc., to teach people, because Zoom has moved on so quickly in the last few years that I'm not having a go at you, dear public, dear YouTube users, dear Zoom users, but most people use a fraction of what's freely given in the base version of Zoom because they don't know what's there. And Zoom is a wonderful company, but it's really bad at actually showing people the new stuff. It's never really had to, and it's not really very good at it. With all due respect to all the product managers out there, it is not something that Zoom is good at. And frankly, I don't think Zoom is ever going to be that good at it. I think it needs people who have done things to share with others, help them up the next level, and as you move up the level yourself. So I will be doing a lot of work in the next 6 months. I've been doing it privately with customers that are customers for other things. And I will be doing a lot more sharing how to do this, how to do that, how to other things. And that will probably then throw back people that say, well, that's really good, but, and then hopefully we can then take the but question, put it back into the developers forum, and somebody, either me or somebody else, will be inspired to create something to solve that but. Because as I keep saying to every group I'm in, let's change the culture of Zoom. Let's stop waiting for engineering to put it into the base product, and let's make all these variations using all the wonderful tools they've made available to us. I don't
And
know of any other company that provides so much open access to their system as Zoom. You can
I,
take their browser version and you can make your own app, call it whatever you like, but Zoom will provide all the video conferencing and all the audio for you. Sorry, Tony, I was cutting you off there.
no, no, I just wanted to say that you have you have inspired me again to continue to reach out to my house of worship members, because in the early days of us worshiping virtually, and right now we are only worshiping through Zoom, and we are in the process of building a building. But the idea is that down the line that we will build a church. The ground is ready, and we just need to get some other things together before we actually start building the building. But what I wanted to share with you was that just based on this conversation that we just had, and particularly the things that you just mentioned, I am going to again encourage them to create their own free Zoom account because it is, I think, everyone should have at least a basic free account and utilize that that platform just based on some of the things that you shared. It, you know, there are not there's not very many times in our lifetime that we can utilize something and it's free that can be, beneficial if it's nothing but being able to engage with grandchildren and family and friends anywhere in the world. And um, recently, my siblings, they were able to do a Zoom call. Well, we have a Zoom call. There are seven of us, and we have a Zoom call every Sunday at 7 p.m. And no matter what is going on, we try to all be there. And we started at the beginning of the pandemic, and we have continued to do it. And this coming weekend, we're going to actually have a family reunion. So looking forward to that. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for your conversation tonight from the standpoint it encourages me to encourage more people to just take a look at the basic Zoom. Um, there are so many things that they can do. And we're down to our last question. And so the last question is you are speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
Wow, that's a great question. Who came out with that? That is fantastic. What I want the world to know. I think what I want the world to know is this. There's been many times in my life when I thought, wow, things just can't get better. And wow, things are hard. But it goes in both those directions in the same way. Terrible things are happening in this world at the moment. AI. AI to me is like Bitcoin. There's much more hype from the guys that own the AI companies because they want to sell more shares. They want to make money, just like Bitcoin. There are lies, there are exaggerations, but if you cut them all away, underlying behind the scenes, there is a technology there which is good. The whole idea of Bitcoin and blockchain is a good idea. It's just people blow it out of proportion. And I'm afraid at the moment, that's where we are with AI. There is so much exaggeration. But what I want the world to know is you can be better than AI. You must be better than AI because AI is just the average of what you know on the internet. So quite frankly, if you want to be good at something, you should be better than what I can randomly find out on the internet and give to an AI model. So don't feel that AI is going to take away your job, because if it does take away your job, then your job probably wasn't that interesting or useful anyhow. There are much more exciting things you can do. And if you will still feel that you want to use AI, then there's a second little trick that you need to know. AI will only get clever when you start teaching your AI your skills. Don't wait
Mm.
for all these big AI companies to make it up for you. It's often called a large language model, but you can create your own large language model. In other words, you can create content which you can then feed to AI. And yes, you can do this in Zoom, because that's what's happening when the transcript's coming out of Zoom. You can take your content, and I've done this, and I know many marketing people who've done this. Take your content, read it out, consume it. I run webinars in Zoom. I then take the transcripts and I give it to my personal AI program, and I feed it into the AI program. So over time, the AI program is learning what I am teaching everybody. So I will get to a point where I'll be able to ask it a question, and it will come back with my personal answer to that particular question, because I've given it the answers, I've given it the solutions. So I think this is a wonderful time for everybody to not give in to AI, but take control of AI and make it work for you.
So I want to ask you, when you are you talking about the GPTs or just large language models in general when you say, um, because
Well,
yeah, go ahead, please.
GPT is a general purpose database. So it's gone to the general internet, and its intelligence is from the general internet. But it doesn't know everything that Tony Mobley knows. So if you teach your own little model what Tony Mobley knows, you now have something which is more intelligent in your area of expertise than any GPT, because you've trained it. I know people in the marketing world who've gone back to all the marketing emails they've sent in their entire life, and they've fed it into their own training model, their own GPT, if you want to call it, not worry about terms. So it now can create marketing messages and emails that sound like them, because they've trained it on all the messages they do. If I want to do a presentation, I will do the presentation into Zoom, and then Zoom Companion will give me a summary of the presentation. If that summary of that presentation doesn't come out as what I thought I was talking about, then honestly, my presentation was right, because AI, as an independent judge, has decided I talked about something differently. Now, that may be because I went off on a tangent and I confused the AI. But if I did that, would I probably not have confused a real person as well by going off on a tangent and losing my way on the subject? So
Absolutely.
use AI. Use AI to help you be better. There's a long way for AI to go before it's an expert in particular things. It's really good at diagnosing cancers, because AI, they don't tell you this, AI is just pattern recognition. That's all it does. All it can do is pattern recognition. It might sound like it's speaking English, but it's just pattern recognition from seeing all the other sentences other people have done. And that's why it's very good at diagnosing cancers, because you give it all these images and it's really good at pattern recognition. So it starts to recognize the pattern for cancer and can do it quicker than a trained person, because it's now learned the pattern buried in these scans for what is cancer and what is not. If you train an AI to understand what you want to do, then it will gradually become, it will never become better than you, but it may come up with angles that you've not thought of or not considered, because it's doing it at random. And this is what Zoom is encouraging all its corporates to do. It's encouraging all its corporates to record all the meetings and then leave them in Zoom. So Zoom's AI can then read all the transcripts of all their meetings and all their decisions, and then they can query all that data. Because we don't remember every meeting we've been to, but the
That's right.
AI can, and it can go and extract. So you can say, when did John say he was going to create his app? And it will go back into the database, read all the data, and hopefully it'll come back with the right answer. AI will not beat us until it fulfills one task that it's not doing at the moment. And I don't think the AI people want even to try. And that is, AI needs to learn how to validate its own answers. And that's the one thing that we will do as humans that it doesn't do at all. And that's why it has this thing called hallucinating, where it takes all the data, puts it together, and makes a complete mess of the answer and comes up with something which is completely different to what everybody thought the answer would be.
Is it possible to create a prompt that would eliminate hallucinations?
No, you've got to give it more data. Hallucinations will happen because it will pattern match a pattern that wasn't there because there wasn't enough data to create the proper answer.
That's interesting because I've asked ChatGPT about movies that I might be interested in, and I'll ask it about a particular actor that I know that was in the movie that I'm interested in and the movie that I might have watched in the past, and it gets it wrong so many times. Um, it's kind of funny that it and I'll ask it. I said, well, are you hallucinating right now? And it'll give me an answer. Uh, I don't think that I'm hallucinating, but um, if you, how I'm trying to think how it actually words it. If you want to correct me, then
That's
please,
like a
please,
kindergarten child, isn't it?
yeah.
It's like a kindergarten child saying, I don't think I'm lying, mummy, but I may be wrong. No, see, the AI doesn't have the intelligence, it's pattern matching, it doesn't have the intelligence to validate what it's saying, whether it's right or wrong. And that's the biggest problem that AI has. And they're not going to try and fix that. But the more data you give it about a subject, the less chance it should have to make those types of mistakes. But your question about prompts is correct, because the better you prompt it, the less chance it has of wandering off in the wrong direction and coming up with the wrong answer. One of the things about Zoom, which is really good, and Zoom works with Perplexity, if you want to know the background. But one of the good things about Zoom is when you ask Zoom questions about meetings and things like that, you get little numbers in the answer. And if you click on those numbers, it will give you the reference to where it got the data from. And I really like that about Zoom, because it means when I ask it a question, not only does it give me the answer, but it gives me the source of where its answer came from. So I can go back to that source and maybe see what the transcript said and see if it's true. Yeah, it may be the way the sentence was composed that John said that Tony should wash the dishes, but it may misinterpret that and think John should wash the dishes because he didn't understand the sentence properly. That probably is not a perfect example, but do you get do you get how I'm
Yeah.
sort of, yeah. So
Yeah.
the nice thing about Zoom giving you the references, you can go back and check the reference and make sure that the conclusion that the AI has made, which is fantastic. I mean, because it's churning through thousands, millions of pieces of data, tens of millions of pieces of data, even billions, I don't know, big numbers anyhow, ridiculous numbers of data to get the answer, which is brilliant. But I want something there, and it's usually at the moment it's going to have to be a human to go in and say, where do you get this data from? And of course, the GPTs of this world, this is where I got a bone about them, they don't do that. Well, why don't they do that? Well, they don't do that because in a lot of times the GPTs don't want to tell you where they got the information from, because there are all these people running around complaining that the GPT stole the information from their book or their piece or their story or whatever, and they don't like that. Whereas Zoom is taking the information from data which you've given it, and it's quite happy to share that back with you, and you can't complain that it's taken it from your data because you gave it your data to get the answer from. But the GPTs don't really want to give that away. I think I've just blown my chance of working for an AI company in the future.
Oh. Well, hopefully that's not true. But I want to say thank you again for being with me today. It has been an amazing conversation, and I'm going to be transparent and tell you that I did not ask you everything that I wanted to ask, because I wanted to go into your ideas about SPX and maybe some alternatives to it, and um, we just ran out of time. So again, Mr. John Drinkwater, thank you so much for being with me today. You can watch Conversation with Tony Mobley on YouTube or my website, conversationwithtonymobley.com. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by Value Audio Visual Professionals who meet daily at Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. And we also want to say, if you are interested in learning about this platform that we're using for Conversation with Tony Mobley called Mimo Live, please go to our website, and there you should be able to find a place where you can volunteer to participate in Conversations with Tony Mobley. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new episodes and great conversations on Conversation with Tony Mobley. We want to thank everyone for the 100 plus episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. Excuse me. And when you have time, we ask that you go back and look at our episodes and check out our shorts, because we have some amazing shorts out there of Conversation with Tony Mobley that I think you will enjoy as well. We want to thank Mr. John Drinkwater for being a part of our conversation today, and for doing the work you do, and for being the person who you are. Next week, Ms. Tamara Pica, producer, educator, digital events manager, innovator, producer of over 300 theater productions. Tamara's going to be with us next week. And we're going to have more interesting people coming on Conversation with Tony Mobley. And we want to say thank you again for being with us. And we ask that you please like Conversation with Tony Mobley on YouTube. And if you like what we're doing, we ask that you go to our website and please donate. And you can donate a one-time donation, or you can do monthly donations. It's up to you. Conversation with Tony Mobley website has a lot of places where you can provide financial support, and also you can support us by being a part of our back-end team. And we want to thank them again for doing the work that they do. And we're going to say good night to all of you. God bless. Thank you again, John. Take care. Good night.
Bye bye.